I'm Sarah Miller, 29, a waitress at Joe's Diner in Springfield, Ohio. Life has never been easy. I worked double shifts, barely scraping enough to cover the rent on my tiny apartment. Tips were my lifeline, but some days I barely managed to make it through. Despite the financial strain, I loved the diner. Its worn red booths, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, and the regulars who had become like family. The diner was my world, a small, comforting place where nothing ever really changed. Joe's Diner wasn't much, but it was mine. I had spent the better part of the last decade working here, and the long hours had worn me thin. Still, the familiar clink of cups, the steady hum of conversation, and the sizzle of bacon on the griddle brought me a sense of peace. Sometimes, in the midst of all the noise, I would close my eyes for a moment and dream of something more, maybe owning my own bakery, having my own little corner of the world where people could come for the smell of fresh bread and sweet pastries. But those thoughts felt like fairy tales. With the way things were going, owning a bakery seemed more like a distant fantasy than a real possibility. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, as I wiped down the counter, a man walked in. He was older, maybe 60, with tired eyes and a worn, faded jacket. He didn't look like much at first, just another tired soul escaping the cold. He sat down at the booth by the window and ordered a coffee, his voice barely above a whisper. As I served him, I couldn't help but notice the sadness in his eyes. He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, lost in thought. After finishing his drink, he left a $1 tip. Small, but still, I saw the effort. The next day, he returned. Same booth, same quiet demeanor. There was something about him that tugged at my heart. I couldn't explain it, but I felt drawn to him. I decided to slip an extra slice of pie onto his plate, on the house. I smiled at him, saying, "Looks like you need it." He nodded, almost imperceptibly, barely speaking. His gaze remained fixed on the pie, but I saw a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. The stranger, who introduced himself as Tom, continued to come back to the diner. Every day, he would sit in the same booth, order the same coffee, and stare out the window. He seemed like someone lost in his own world. Someone who carried the weight of years on his shoulders. I started to notice the little things, the way his hands trembled slightly when he picked up his cup, the way his eyes seemed distant, as though he were searching for something in the rain outside. I began adding little extras to his meals like a warm muffin, an extra pancake. Each time, he would mutter, "You don't have to do that," but I always waved it off with a smile. "It's just kindness," I would say. In truth, I saw a lot of myself in him. Life hadn't been easy for either of us. My mom had raised me to always lift others up, even when I had little to give. Tom seemed like someone who had been beaten down by life, and I could relate to that. Then, one night, after I'd finished my shift, I found a note with my tip. It was small, just a folded piece of paper with a few words scrawled across it. "You're a light in the dark." The words hit me harder than I expected. I had always felt like I was stuck in a rut, unsure of where I was headed. I wasn't sure how much I was really helping anyone, but Tom's words made me realize that maybe, just maybe, I was making a difference in someone's life. But then Tom stopped coming. Days turned to weeks, and I began to worry. Had I done something wrong? Had I scared him off? I waited, hoping he would return, but he never did. Then, one evening, a man in a suit walked into the diner and asked for me. "Sarah Miller?" he said. "I'm with Harper Law. You've been named in a will." My heart skipped. A will? Who could possibly leave me a will? Mr. Harper, the lawyer, sat me down after my shift and explained the situation. "You've inherited 50 0 from Thomas Grayson, he said, his tone professional, but I could hear a slight hesitation in his voice. My mind reeled. Tom? The man who sat in my diner, barely speaking, leaving only $1 tip? How could this be real? There's more, Harper continued, pulling out an envelope. He left you a letter. I took the letter, my hands shaking as I opened it. Tom's handwriting filled the page, and as I read, a lump formed in my throat. He wrote about his life, about losing his wife, his daughter, and his hope. Your kindness reminded me that I wasn't alone, he had written. This money is a thank you. I could barely breathe. 50? 0? To me, that was an unimaginable amount of money. It felt like a windfall, a lifeline. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe things could get better. I paid off some bills, fixed my car, and even started to dream about opening that bakery again. But there was something more Tom had left me. He had written, "Visit my old office in Columbus if you want to know who I really was." The address Tom had given led me to a forgotten office building in Columbus. It looked abandoned, with dust collecting on the windows and a faded sign reading Grayson Tech. Inside, it was a time capsule, old photographs, files, and articles from years past. As I explored the space, I came across a photograph of Tom with a young woman who looked strangely familiar. My heart skipped a beat. She looked just like my mom, only younger. Confused and overwhelmed, I went home and started digging through my mother's old things. Among the old papers and photos, I found a letter. It was from someone named Tommy G. and was dated 30 years ago. "I'm sorry I left," the letter read. "I'll always love you." My mind raced. Could it be? Was Tom my father? I immediately called my mom. Her voice trembled when I asked her if my father's name was Tom. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she whispered, "Yes." My world tilted on its axis. Tom wasn't just a stranger I had befriended. He was my father, and he had been sitting in my diner all along, never knowing that I was his daughter. When I confronted my mom, she told me everything. Tom had been her high school sweetheart, but when she got pregnant, he panicked and ran off, chasing his dreams in the tech world. He returned years later, but by then, my mom was hurt and angry, and she didn't want to see him. "He didn't know about you," she said, her voice filled with regret. "I never told him." I was devastated. Tom had sat in my diner for weeks, not knowing that I was his daughter, and yet my small acts of kindness had reached him. I wasn't sure what to feel: anger, sorrow, confusion. How could he have kept this secret? Why hadn't he tried harder to find me? Then, in one of the files I found at Tom's old office, I discovered another letter. In it, Tom confessed that he had suspected I was his daughter ever since he saw me in the diner. He had hired a detective to track me down, and once he confirmed the truth, he still couldn't bring himself to tell me. "I failed you," he wrote. "This money is my way to make it right." But there was more. Tom had set up a trust fund worth $2 million for me if I claimed it. I was frozen, unable to comprehend the enormity of it all. Me? A millionaire? With the weight of the trust fund on my shoulders, I wasn't sure what to do. The guilt gnawed at me. I didn't really know Tom. Sure, he had left me money, but he was still a stranger. Could I accept this fortune when I had never even known him? I decided to go back to the diner, the one place that always felt like home. As I stood behind the counter, Mrs. Carter, one of the regulars, noticed I was off. "What's wrong, Sarah?" she asked, her gentle eyes filled with concern. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her everything, Tom. The money, the truth. She listened intently, her expression soft and understanding. "Honey," she said, placing a hand on mine. He gave you this because he loved you. Use it to shine brighter. Her words resonated deep within me. With newfound clarity, I went ahead and claimed the trust fund. With $2 million, I was able to buy Joe's diner, fix it up, and open the bakery I had always dreamed of. I named it Grayson's to honor Tom, and started a fund to help struggling families in Springfield, just as he had once been helped. Every pie I baked felt like a tribute to him. But life had more surprises in store. One day, a stranger walked into the diner. "I knew Tom," she said, her eyes serious. "There's something you need to know." The woman's name was Ellen. She had been Tom's business partner before the fall of Grayson Tech. "Tom left you more than just money," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of the past. "He left you shares in Grayson Tech. The company is being revived, and you're now a co-owner." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Me? A co-owner of a tech company? It felt surreal. Ellen explained that the company had started up again, and Tom had made sure I had a stake in its future. The shares were worth millions, and suddenly, I found myself not only a successful business owner, but also a millionaire in the tech world. With Ellen's guidance, I navigated the world of tech investments while balancing the diner and bakery. The people of Springfield supported me every step of the way, and my bakery flourished. My dream had come true, not just in money, but in love, purpose, and community. At the grand opening of Grayson's, I hung a photo of Tom on the wall, whispering a quiet thank you. My simple act of kindness had changed everything. I was rich, not just in wealth, but in the love and connections I had built along the way. What do you think? Would you have taken Tom's money? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear. If this story warmed your heart, subscribe for more like it. Thanks for watching. You are awesome.